So, is the tweeting and blogging done? Okay. So everybody have food? Great. We like to start these on time, and we also like to end on time. Be mindful of all the things you have to do. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Michael Parks. I'm the director of the Journalism School, and this is the first of what will be a weekly journalism and public relations forum that is meant to kind of add to whatever you get in the classroom. It's meant to take you to the frontiers of two dynamic professions that are changing. And so we'll have them at noon on Tuesday, every Tuesday, until the end of the semester. At noon, so 1 to 1 o'clock, we will advertise them. Let me tell you about next week before I turn it over. Next week, the story inside the U.S.-China summit that was at the Annenberg Sunnylands retreat, 6 weeks ago. Jeff Collin, who is the president of the Sunnylands Foundation, and Clay Dubé from the U.S.-China Institute here at Annenberg will come and tell the story behind the story. So, and how it was covered. Apparently the coverage in the U.S. press and in the Chinese press, very different. So, next week. The week after that, we're going to have a roundtable of the editors of the student publications here at USC, Neon Tommy, the Daily Trojan, Annenberg Television News, Annenberg Radio News, and so you want to come for that too. So those are the next two. So come on in. Those who don't have food, get some food, because we're going to start. Robert Hernandez kind of walks out there on the edge.
Something.
Yes, we're not quite clear what, but he's here to kind of explore with his colleagues. You can see that they are all fashion appropriate. Storytelling with Google Glass. I don't know enough about Google Glass to say much more, but Robert does. And so, Robert, Joe.
Hi. Thank you guys for coming. It's a pretty good turnout for one of these. I have slides, but they're not slides. It's more just the structure of what we'll talk about. I kind of wanted to have certain points to hit. One, we'll introduce ourselves, and one of the fascinating things about being a glass explorer, although that makes me kind of weird out sometimes, is how you got glass. I wanted to kind of talk about that. We'll demo glass, talk about how it works, because that's one of the most common questions that we get. And then I'd like us to each kind of talk about what our plan is to use with glass and our experiences. And this is an informal conversation to nerd out about this geeky, dorky-looking thing, admittedly so. And then, hopefully, I'd like to spend the last part of time just kind of brainstorming what could be done with glass in terms of content creation, content distribution, this new platform for journalism, of course, but also for storytelling. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Robert Hernandez. I'm a journalism professor here at Annenberg. Been here for 4 years. I teach grad and undergrad. This fall I'm teaching an augmented reality AR storytelling and journalism course where we're going to augment the downtown library with experiences and information. It's a total experiment that will be awesome. And I teach another course called Advanced Multimedia Storytelling in the spring, and core courses for grad and undergrad. I got glass because I tweeted, I participated in the contest. If I had glass, I said I would continue exploring ways to tell stories and inform my community. And then the second tweet, which they clearly ignored, was, if I had glass, I would have to rent it out to pay for the damn thing, which is a violation of theirs. Things I want to mention that I have is a Twitter account, AR, or Glass Journalism. is where I'm tweeting some stuff, as well as a Tumblr, glassjournalism.tumblr, where I've been putting some stuff. Each one of us is kind of finding ways to manifest. The other one that I have up there, because I'm sure you guys have had this experience, I decided to make a Tumblr called Haters Wearing Glass, where either I convert them or I Photoshop glass on them, and I'm good with Photoshop. Look at that detail right there with the hair. So that's who I am and what my background is with glass. So when we go, oh, and let me talk about this. I organized a meetup kind of informally. We just glommed together, and we first met August 1st here in Annenberg. There's a handful of glass explorers in the wilds here on campus, and all of these are connected to Annenberg right here. We have also 2 staffers that have glass. And we're trying to kind of get together and figure out what do we do, at least kind of share war stories or awkward stories of wearing glass. One gentleman here, Christopher Gaparte, could not make it. He got married over the weekend, and he has his priorities in order, I guess. And he's also tweeting and blogging about his experience. And then this is Michael Chung, who is a CS alum from USC. He is the lead mobile developer for ESPN, and he was here on taking some classes in cinema to learn how to make 60-second movies, because he believes in glass and he wants content to be made. So we nerded out together and hope to collaborate. We're actually working on 2 apps. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Cool. My name is Alex Levitt. I'm a third-year PhD student here at Annenberg. I got glass also through the tweeting contest. I said something like I was going to use it for bike advocacy because I'm a big cyclist in Los Angeles. I also got it in partnership with the Annenberg Innovation Lab because I have no money. But me and a couple of collaborators are hoping to develop some research apps and some games over the next semester.
I am Francesca Marie Smith. I am a doctoral candidate and provost fellow here. And just by the way, to do the math on this, I visited Google's Venice office this weekend and asked exactly how many glass devices are out in the world right now. And they said 6,000 had been invited to participate in the Explorer program. So I think we have at least 6 here, 5 or 6 here in Annenberg, so we probably have 1,000 of the Google Glass right now. So well done, Annenberg. But I actually, my story is probably the least exciting. I got it through the I/O development program, the Google Commons.
Yeah, so did Chris and Jeremiah. They also got it that way. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcia Dawkins. I'm a professor in the Communications School here at Annenberg, and I teach courses in rhetoric, argumentation, and African-American rhetoric and image. And they're really all about storytelling. So I was very excited to participate in the If I Had Glass contest. Unlike my colleagues here, I did not tweet about it. I went to Google+, so that was strategy. And so in Google+, I spent an entire Sunday afternoon after brunch coming up with all these creative ways and things that stories I could tell about race and ethnicity and diversity using glass. Like, I could ride the blue line from USC to Long Beach and talk about deindustrialized Los Angeles. If I had glass, I could help end sexism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the post that won was, if I had glass, I would meet Eminem, and maybe you could too. Coincidentally, my book about Eminem comes out this Saturday. It's published in the November 5th. So that's the story for me of how I got glass.
So let's demo it. That's the most common question. Who has their line down, like how to point stuff features out? Like you get this question all the time. So who feels comfortable demoing it? Talking about it.
Well, just to give sort of my observations to the most commonly asked questions I get, it's not on all the time, right? You have to activate it to have it do something.
No, there's a graphic that kind of breaks down how it works.
It's not on all the time. You can activate it either by tapping this touchpad, which is right on the side here, and the touchpad can be activated by tapping, but then you can also control by swiping forward, back, or down. There's also a hard button on the top, which you can press to activate the camera, or hold down to take videos.
I will be the hand model.
You'll be my man away for now. So it's exactly as intrusive as you want it to be. You can also just angle your head up, and that will also activate the screen. And then once you do that, it can do a variety of things. If somebody else wants to talk about different apps and cards. Sure.
Yeah, so when you first get Glass and they set it up at the Google offices, they'll walk you through a set of apps that come pre-installed. So you can opt in to things like Twitter, the New York Times, a couple other social media sites. And surprisingly, a lot of things are not yet developed for Glass. So those 10 or 12 initial apps are ready for you to just use right out of the box. But a lot of other third-party developers have SDKs, and they're currently developing apps for it. So you can put it into what's called debug mode, and then load apps on that are currently being developed, both to help those developers try out what they're building, but also for you to try out new things on your own.
The other thing is that it's also scary and cool at the same time. It's got an audio bone conductor, so it vibrates your skull and tells you Google is awesome. But it's not the greatest audio. It's got a microphone built in, kind of aimed at you to pick up your audio. It's not really for external purposes. The camera is built in there, and it's an HD camera, wide angle, so you can take photos and video.
But you can't zoom.
You can't zoom. They just added a volume control, which is kind of funny because you need it more than 100%. So you guys cup your ears?
Yeah, I can't. Just for fashion purposes.
You'll wear that orange thing, but you can't do that.
Correct.
Really, you don't want to look like you're speaking your secret service.
There you go.
It's the same technology that Java uses, by the way. I know it sounds terrifying that it's vibrating your skull, but...
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anything else?
Just some of the standard information that comes up as well. It's integrated with Google Now. It has a lot of the same cards if you have an Android phone that will come up showing you if you have upcoming appointments, weather, where you are, directions to places you've recently searched on Google Maps where you're sort of going, how would they know I want to go there?
They know.
And the directions is also another thing that a lot of people don't know about that I really like. If you do ask it to find directions for you, either through the phone and then you send the directions to Glass or by asking on the device, it has an overlay. So as you're sort of moving your head, it's showing you what streets you're looking at and telling you where you can go.
Yeah, it knows where your head is pointed at. I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and I did my phone, and I went 2 blocks the wrong direction. Like, I have a horrible sense of direction. So that's actually the main reason why I got this. But yeah, that's one of the cool things about it.
It tethers with the GPS of your phone, though. It doesn't do that independently.
Yes, and that's something, too, to talk about. I'm an Apple guy. I'm a nerd guy, but I have an Apple iPhone that's pretty beat up. And when I got this, it was basically a nice camera on my face. It was almost pointless until I had they're really freaking smart about what they're doing. I had to go with an Android device, and it's tethered through Bluetooth, and that just opens up a lot of doors. Their app, even for the Android device, is really great. You can screencast. You can show people what you're watching, and we'll do that in a little bit if you guys want to see that. What are the common commands that you say? So the home screen is the time, and then the keywords, which are in quotes, which is OK Glass. And then what are the list of commands that come out?
Take a picture, record a movie, send a text,
Have a video call with
Google, obviously.
And it's pretty smart about the Google search technology, too. You can ask it questions, and it'll either bring up a list of web pages, which then they've pretty recently released a very cool system where you sort of look around.
You scroll by looking up and down.
To look at the web pages. But for a lot of simple questions, and there's a really nice video online about this, it'll just tell you the answer. So if you say, my favorite example was, who sang that song that goes, how bizarre, how bizarre? And she'll say, oh, that was OMC. Or whatever it was.
And then also there's sharing, which I think is probably the most interesting part. So it's very, very easy to share things. So I could just throw this on, take a picture, there you are, share it to Facebook, and done. And so that's now linking to my Facebook. So it's pretty easy to be able to share things. There are some limitations with that, though. So if your internet connection is a bit wonky, maybe it sometimes won't work.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have too many photos on the thing, it doesn't sync correctly. And it's still in beta. Yeah,
and again, Google is really smart. It's a little bit hard to share on Twitter. You can share on Twitter, but I've tried to add captions, and it doesn't take. I can't create a tweet through here, although I found a little Twitter mail text message hack to do that. Facebook, it's like you can share with Facebook, but you can write a caption, I think, in Facebook. They're a little bit clunky, but guess one works really well? Google Plus. Who's on Google Plus? Who's active on Google Plus? Don't be okay. That's basically it. All right, we have another Glass Explorer in the back. Are there other Glass Explorers in here? What's your name? Introduce yourself.
David.
Oh, hey, David. How are you? Thank you for coming.
I suppose it's also worth mentioning that it does function as a Bluetooth headset. If
Yeah.
you want something that's sort of mundane, you can make phone calls with it. And anytime you get text messages through either Google Voice or your native phone app, it'll come up and allow you to respond via voice, and the transcription is stellar.
The captioning, when I try to add a caption to a photo, it's like, oh, no, not that. Oh, Jesus, God, no. And it puts some weird words, and like, splicing down, don't tweet that out. But it is pretty good when you give it a command, like give directions to, and I give it an address. It does a really fantastic job. Pretty epic about that. Questions about how it works? Yeah.
So I know that when you're sharing your camera feed, that you can, let's say I'm sharing my camera feed with you, you can't actually see my face. You see what I'm looking at?
Yeah, it's pointed out.
So do you think they're looking to, make it so we can actually see each other's face rather than, you seeing my sandwich while we're talking?
It would be weird to have like a camera pointed down.
I think the point of it is to show a person's perspective and the stories they can tell from that particular perspective. So I don't know what they'll do. I don't have that genie, but I definitely think there's a reason why it's going out.
It might be good for, like, let's say I need to reset my internet modem, and I don't know which cable it's like.
There are a lot of ways to do that,
And, football teams are using it now in practice. So two players who are wearing glass will be able to see what the other is seeing so that they can work more in sync as a team. So I think in that way it's just causing us maybe to turn our gaze outward rather than inward.
And that was one of the stated goals, which was, living your lives through your phone is kind of clunky. So this allows you to, like, engage with the world and be hands-free and participate and share your experiences that way. The battery life is not good, but it charges really, really fast, which is pretty cool.
Well, how long is the battery life?
How long? I don't know the time.
It depends on what you're doing, very much so.
Yeah. So I wore it. I was in New York, and I wore it to kind of meet a friend of mine. And in the 20 minutes, it had gone down a third. But it was because the GPS was just really working, and the tall buildings were kind of messing with it.
I'd say about an hour of constant use right now.
I use mine while I go biking, especially to record the entire trip, and it's kind of capped out at an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay.
And that's full video record.
Okay, so you were recording the whole time. Cool.
How much does the system cost?
So we paid, as a Glass Explorer, I'm fine, $1,635. That's for, what's that?
$1,500 in tax.
Oh, yeah. But I've heard that the parts are about $100 to $200, and this is basically a really neat and dorky-looking cell phone accessory. And so, in order for this to hit, they have to be really competitive. Robert Scoble tweeted out that he heard that it was $300 on sale, and someone from Glass said, no, it's not going to be $300. So it's either going to be $298 or it's probably around $500. There are different rumors out there in terms of when they're supposed to come out. They were aiming to have it at the end of this year. Now they're pushing it back, possibly the start of next year. Did you guys hear anything?
The last I heard was definitely 2014.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, it's definitely not 2013.
Okay.
I think there's
But you'll need an Android with it.
What's that?
Holiday 2014 is kind of official.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but could be soon.
There's some functionality with the iPhone, and I've
Yeah.
heard that that's going to get better. I don't. It's really a strategy choice on their part.
Yes.
So you've all had it for how many weeks?
I've had it for
3
years.
months, roughly 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think it's a must-have accessory?
I think it could be.
In what way?
I think that right now the app ecosystem is very infantile, and that's kind of Google's choice. What they started off with for developers was called the Mirror API. So essentially every app you're using, I'm sorry if you already covered this, but is basically a web app. So you have an app that's running in the cloud somewhere, and it's basically pushing and pulling content to and from Glass. So there's no code running on Glass. It's essentially sending little cards, chunks of HTML, text, images, voice clips, back and forth. So, for example, if I want to do something that involves instant recognition, even of something as simple as a QR code, I literally have to take that picture, send that back to my web app, have it processed there, and then come back. So
But that's
very limited.
really fast,
But
though.
what I should say is that they're starting to move toward the native app model.
Yeah.
So what they've told developers is that they're going to create an extension of the Android SDK that'll let you write apps that run on Android, because Glass runs on Android, but that are tailored to the Glass experience. And I think that's what's going to make it powerful. I think until then, it's more of just an accessory, like you said, but it is a computer on your face, and once it really becomes a computer on your face, I think that's when it's going to become really a must-have. But
So,
that could be a ways off.
A lot of folks say, or project that it's going to be like the Segway. Someone else asked, like, this is not, what problem is it solving? You know, I don't need to take pictures. I mean, Instagram takes pictures of your lunch. This does it much nicer. But I actually think this is going to hit. I actually think, I don't know what you guys think, but as people, I've shared it with other folks, they get it right away. They start thinking of different applications. You talked about the surgeon. When I was in China, an architect was like, oh my gosh, I can see this as I'm doing work. I've done it while driving, and a lot of people freak out. It's actually so unintrusive. I'm driving, and in the corner, if I choose to look up, are the directions, or it vibrates and tells me, you know, turn in on the left-hand side or something like that. What do you guys think? Is it going to hit? Is it?
For me, I think it's around the price point.
Yeah, that's true too.
I read a couple consumer reports that tried to get an approximation of how people feel about the price point and whether they would buy it or not based on that. And I think it's probably, like, if it doesn't hit around or below $300, it's not going to take off.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because there's no immediate use compared to other technology out there. So, like, if you have a cell phone versus glass, your cell phone is just going to be able to do the same, if not more, for relatively cheaper.
Yeah.
And so, if they can get a good price out of the box, then it'll probably fly off the shelves.
I heard a rumor about ad-supported. So, would you wear glass if they gave it to you for free, if you would get ads? Raise your hand if you would say yes.
I might try it.
Depends.
So think about the ads you would get, though. They would actually be useful because it knows what you're looking at and where you are. Creepy, granted, but useful. And I'm curious to know how that would take. Most people, when I said that to you, the majority say yes.
But this is the assumption that advertising is useful anyway, right?
It's not right. It's actually useful. How it's done now, opposite of useful. What do you think? Is it going to hit?
I have a couple answers to that. First of all, there was an article that I can't remember where it was, but it made the point that right now it's a status item, and I think that's very true. And I pushed back a little bit on Alice's assumption about the price point. When the iPhone was released, it was about $600. When the iPad was released, I think it was the same thing. This is an executive, an executive's dream, right? This is the mark on your face, literally, of how cool you are. Especially right now when it's sort of limited release. Even if it looks dorky, right? Like knowing that A, it's expensive, B, it's the latest and greatest new thing, that makes it an incredible vehicle for conspicuous consumption. So I think even if it doesn't do amazing things, just the hubbub that's already been created about it makes it desirable at that level. Secondarily, though, that part about whether it does amazing things, right now, it doesn't necessarily have a unique niche in my life that it does. That it fills such that it does one thing better than what my phone does or my iPad does or my computer does. If I want to send an email, unless I really want to show off and be talking to my face and have it say, send through glass, I'm going to sit down in front of a computer. If I really want a nice picture, I'm going to use my DSLR. But that's not going to be that way for very long. I think very, very soon, and it's up to us to start creating the demand and creating applications, and we'll talk some about our research ideas, to make it indispensable. And that's going to happen, I think, in a matter of months.
And what do you think?
I would definitely agree with what Francesca said, and I would also add, for me, I think, in addition to price point, it's also about who has access to it. So as I'm very interested in the stories being told about glass, we see people who are differently able, using and finding new uses for glass, and how stigma is being lessened for different types of prosthetics that people may need. And so in that respect, I think that is one way in which it will take off. I'm also concerned at who doesn't have access to glass. Yep. And so, the kids I ride the Blue Line with, who made me get an Android phone, a year ago, and set me down this path, right, are they going to be able to have glass? If they get it in their hands, I think it could be tremendous. I think we could see all different types of new ways of telling stories that otherwise wouldn't get told. But again, I think all of that intersects with all these other things.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's really the out-of-the-box price or it's the data plan. Are really the people who are going to have access, people with all unique data?
Yeah, that's always, it's a nice thing, but if it's not connected to the internet, it's a camera.
I think that's a weird line, too, because in my personal use cases, I feel like a lot of the public-facing media I produce using glass is post hoc created. So if I'm recording a video, I'll go to my computer, edit it, and then upload it on YouTube. If I'm...
It's not real time, though? You're not usually loading in real time?
And no, because it ends up being an issue with the internet connection, usually. And so whether that's because I'm abroad, or whether because I forgot to just tether it, or whether because like the wireless is a bit wonky, or just because I want to create a very unique type of media that can only be done with like Final Cut Pro or something like that.
It depends on the use. I'm tethered all the time, and I tweet and share pictures and stuff like that. So if it's not real time, I don't have the time or interest to go back and download it and edit stuff, or it's not.
I'm very much using it the way that Robert has said, and I think we also have to think about, for instance, the Pew Center report that came out earlier this week that said that most people actually only have access through their mobile devices, right? And so in that sense, glass could really take off exactly for that reason.
Another question, I don't want to put any of you personally on the spot, but a lot of new technologies really take off through pornography.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
it would seem that the uses are fairly...
What are you suggesting?
I don't want any of you to tell me about your personal experiences, but it does seem like a fairly obvious application.
And that was one of the first the first apps that was creatively named, pardon my French, Tits and Glass. And people immediately took a very quick step to sort of disown. They didn't block it, from what I understand.
No,
I think you can still get. They did block it? Really, what I heard was they were quick to sort of not sanction it and make it clear that they were not going to sort of facilitate pornographic usage, but sort of leave it open to third parties. I don't know.
Judy?
Along those lines, what about the privacy issue? I mean, I'm assuming you wouldn't be able to wear anything in the U.S. office.
So let's put a hold on that. I want to talk about quickly describe what your goal is what's your research that you want to do with glass, and then talk about your experiences, how have people reacted, what your use has been, things like that.
May I say that quickly because I have to teach.
Okay.
But one of the things I want to do with glass is see how we can use it in the classroom to not only capture the student perspective, obviously, but my own as an instructor and enhance the learning community. Beyond that, as I said, I'm interested in the stories being told about glass. So I'm very interested in looking at different uses for it, as we've joked, as a fashion accessory. That's our private line. But also in terms of who is able to tell stories for me about diversity and technology that show how our world may or perhaps may not be changing. So that's my short idea of what I'm going to be doing with class, and now I have to go do it. So please.
Thank you. What are you doing?
I'm also interested in the storytelling aspect. I'm sort of playing around with a colleague at the Jim Henson Studios and Nickelodeon right now to sort of think about new ways of using glass there. But what I'm really much more interested in right at the moment is a project for consumption of media through glass, and particularly the questions of accessibility. I'm partnering with my colleague Mark Bovey, actually, who founded the Global Events and Media Accessibility Initiative, and we're putting together a project with the Annenberg Innovation Lab, actually, to hopefully pair AMPUS, the Oxford people, with Google, with the major studios, with the major movie theaters, to better take advantage of the subtitle tracks, the audio description for the blind, and other additional sort of enhancement tracks that are already being shipped out in digital cinematic packages, but right now there really isn't a clean or universally standard way to deliver that to audiences of various abilities in the audience. So we're interested in doing that, particularly in light of an upcoming ruling in October from the Department of Justice, which is going to push for greater accessibility among theater owners. But we also sort of want to pitch this much more as a broadly applicable cinematic experience, right? So it's not just about someone with an impairment coming in and needing to be brought up to the same level as everyone else, but also considering what sort of second screen possibilities there are for all audiences, who might appreciate being able to get, for example, trivia or social networking or some sort of gaming or any other additional audio or visual layer that a filmmaker or other content creator might be able to do. I'm also working with ASM, so sports media people, to figure out what that might look like in a sports venue set as well.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I'm kind of coming at it from a research interest. So that takes two fronts, one of which is just kind of researching how people are using it in their daily lives. And I think that gets back to the privacy question, so I'll put that one on hold until we talk about that. But then the other side is thinking more about exactly what kind of stories can be told and researching how people are creating those, especially around the kind of technological augmentation aspect of that storytelling. So, yeah, Glass has a camera and can take video, but if you come at it from a medium specificity perspective, that's what lots of other technology can do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so how can we exactly augment that video with other data that it can track, because it does have those capabilities, to kind of create better storytelling through whatever kind of thing you're doing. So say if I'm biking down the street, maybe it can collect sensor data as I'm biking to tell additional stories from the main story that I'm telling as I'm going along the road.
I'm similar as well. I'm looking at it, how will it affect journalism from the creation side, which I think is actually kind of small. POV shots are neat, but it's just a one-trick pony for me. But it's really the consumption side, contextual storytelling. I'm at a specific place, there's the power of the internet, it knows what I'm looking at. What can you tell me to inform me to be a better? I'm going to dinner, what do you recommend? I want to go to a movie, what do you see? So it's more AR, although Google early on said they tried AR and it didn't work out, but I think it's because it's early.
It works.
I think, Michael from ESPN said he hacked it and did some AR stuff. So the creation of that content, in order to create that content, you have to be a developer, and I'm trying to find ways to kind of lower that barrier and find different ways, different platforms, so that's classes starting tonight. But yeah, two apps that I'm working on are really, really simple. So I wrote about a couple ideas. One of them is the Breaking News Twitter account. They tweet, right, every second. So something that just lets you know, holy crap, this is a big, big deal based on retweets. Really, really simple. Or very legacy, but also useful, would be NPR's top and bottom of the hour audio 5-minute piece. Just vibrate, tell me what just happened, what's the latest news. The news cards or apps that are there now are actually really not good. The New York Times one is just bombarding you with the latest headlines that you don't care about. It's just jamming news down your throat. ESPN is working on different things, and ESPN is a fantastic model where if you're addicted to your series of teams, you can specify what notifications you want, and it comes to you without you having to take your phone out of the pocket. And that act, I think, is significant, to not have to stop, unlock your phone, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty fast here. Yeah.
Does that mean that Glass can have pop-up like it can turn on without you turning it on to show pop-up?
It just beeps, and if it's on, you can see it, and I can swipe in, and I just got a note from Michael asking if I can invite him to the Google Hangout, so I'll do that. But yeah, you get bite-sized information. So if a tweet mentions you or if a DM sent to you, you can get that. I haven't figured out my pattern for the emails. Some emails show up, some don't. So it's bite-sized, unintrusive information. It's kind of like that formula.
And you can either read it, or a lot of the content can be read aloud as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't laugh at it. So, questions about our research at all?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
If you turn on the Google Glass for like 1 or 2 hours, like the battery lasts, it doesn't affect your eye?
That's a common question. So let's talk about our experiences. How's your eye been? How often do you wear it? How long do you wear it? And how's your eye doing?
I think the funniest thing is when someone first puts it on, and they kind of have to cover one eye.
Yeah.
Because it takes a little while to actually get used to it. And I'm not sure if Glass has been produced with a left side version, but I know that if you're not right eye dominant, the vision doesn't really work necessarily. But otherwise, it's just kind of like a really nice camera or screen occasionally.
I think the specs that usually get cited are that it's the equivalent of a 28-inch computer monitor. So it's a pretty sizable screen. It's pretty easy to read. And the other thing that I've been really pleasantly surprised by, I don't need corrected lenses, but a lot of the people who I've loaned it to, to try on and play with, who have had a variety of corrected lens needs or bifocals or whatever else, they're still able to read it quite well, close enough. I'm sure there are some sort of forms of correction that would make it very difficult, but across the board it's been really accessible. The issue, of course, is how to get it on your face while also wearing glasses, and I think Robert's gotten a really nice position for that.
Well, I just put them over my glasses. I was like, oh, this works, because they're not going back.
It looks awesome, though.
With my sunglasses, I mean, like, they're obvious, but with my sunglasses, they kind of hide it. They give you these clip-on lenses. Do you guys use those?
Most 80s charming.
Totally. Like, we're going to go play volleyball with our Oakleys.
And they're pretty easy to flip on, but they will.
It needs a red light to go back and forth. Do you wear goggles where you're
They also
wearing
came
when
with
you're
a clear
cycling?
one, which I guess has some sort of application for like sports or something. And
shooting.
Yeah, so you can just like snap them on and.
Oh, fascinating.
But I wear these all the time when I'm biking, which is super useful. And in terms of use cases, it's very easy to operate. So whether you're driving a car, for the most part, you're never touching it if you just turn on directions.
Yeah, it's great.
When I'm biking, I either just say, take a picture, or take a video, or I just snap the thing real quick.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, it's been super useful just in kind of like special or even touristy context, because when I need to take a lot of pictures, this has a much better camera than my phone does, and it's just a lot quicker than pulling it out, opening up everything.
Yeah, I want to show like some stuff that I've done. I was in China and it didn't have Wi-Fi, but I saw a statue people were going up to and touching, so as I walked to it, I said, okay, glass, and POV shot of me doing what you're supposed to be as a tourist. Is it compelling? Not so much, or what have you. But another thing I experimented with, I have a 4-year-old, and he was playing with his toys, and I thought, let me see his POV shot. So I put the camera on him. He was playing with his new plane, and you can't hear it, but he's making the plane sounds, and like I could watch him play and try to get that experience, but this is pretty rad. As a dad, this is pretty rad. Is it like, going to be documentary kind of footage? It's like a cool slice purpose to kind of see when my kid was 4 how he played, stuff like that. Had a good time.
Do you want me to show a video?
Yeah, call it up. I wear it not all the time. I forced myself to wear it more because I paid for this. Thank you to Annenberg, we paid for it together. But I want to try it out. And there are some. It's funny in journalism. There are some haters who are like, "Oh, you're gonna be a glass hole," is that term? You're gonna be so douchey wearing that stuff. And I look at it in terms of someone's gotta. This sounds awkward, but someone's gotta take one for the team. And quite honestly,
take it full screen.
When has journalism ever benefited from ignoring or dismissing technology? So someone's got to play with it and figure it out.
So this was on Cyclovia going down Wilshire.
But the thing to remember too, which is funny.
Oh yeah.
A former student of mine did the same thing with a GoPro. I mean, like this. Your phone is better, but this is something. We're all kind of playing with it, trying to figure it out. It's mesmerizing, but it's also just a camera on a bike. It's got kind of weird kind of thing.
One of my next projects, I'm also a ballroom dancer, and I'm really looking forward to, especially for a class that I'm teaching, being able to see both the lead and follow the POV. And that's the kind of thing where GoPro might really get in the way, or a handheld camera really is feasible if you're engaging with your hands a lot. So there are some very specific situations. But a couple of, sorry, go ahead.
Just to follow up with that, though, there are definitely some circumstances where it's not good to use them. So I tried to take them on a roller coaster, and they were definitely going to fly off my face.
Oh, really? I was going to take my kid to Disneyland this weekend.
Yeah, so
but I'm not going to wear it for that long. I don't want to be judged by society.
I went on Space Mountain, and the picture that they took was me trying not to have one fly on my face as everyone took it.
So, but I mean, like, have you forced yourself to do it at times? Have you found yourself going like, yeah, no?
I strategically decide when I'm going to make use of it, but B, when I want that much attention. Because honestly, it is right now, you're kind of an alien. And when I first got it, I was in London, where people have that like politeness thing going on, where they're like staring.
I went to IKEA and I was looking at my phone, and these two women came up and they were really close, and I looked up, and one of them was like, "What's on your face?" Google Glass? What? Google Glass? It's a computer. Oh, God. They turned and walked away. I'm like, stop it, everybody. Yes.
Can we go back to Judy's question?
Sure, privacy.
Let's just say you're at a dinner, and it's 10 o'clock, you've had a couple of bottles of wine, and you're the only person at that dinner with Google Glass. Do you think it would change the nature of the conversation that you have because other people might feel inhibited?
I think I don't know what your experience is. I was taking a tour with some colleagues of the Annenberg building, and one colleague said, I kind of feel weird with that thing on your face. And sure, but I'm not going to record it. But that's just me. I have ethics and such. But what has been your reaction and experience?
So Francesca made a really interesting point about kind of strategic use of it in certain contexts, and that's exactly the project that I'm going to be starting this fall, which is going out and talking to wearable computing use people about exactly the kind of privacy boundaries they create, rather than the privacy boundaries that people are encountering against glass. So, like, right now, like, I'm not wearing it on my face because I am making a choice to have some kind of, like, social boundary be created without it being on my face. Versus where there are decisions here where they're totally fine wearing it. And I feel like that is an interesting aspect of that privacy conversation.
Robert Scoble, who probably shared too much with wearing it while in the shower, he wanted to test whether it was waterproof, and it apparently is. He said that whenever he goes to the bathroom, he automatically pulls that up, right, because he doesn't want to make anyone feel weird. One of the things about glass is that it does light up when it's on, so it's a little indicator about that. What has been your experience?
Just to sort of push back on the privacy thing a little bit, I think that glass can actually be a boon to discussions of privacy. First of all, just because they're a lightning rod to get people thinking about the kind of surveillance that we are already pretty much always under, right? I could be filming, it's not as, it would be a little more obvious for me to be like, right, rather than just having something on my face.
Romney didn't notice.
But I mean, between
camera right over there.
There are cameras, or at least camera potentials around us all the time. So I'm happy, I'm thrilled that Glass is inviting us to have these conversations. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and I'm so mad at myself, I didn't pull up the name before I came. You might know the guy who did Sue Valens.
Yeah, Man.
Right.
Steve Man? It's Man with two N's.
Insert footnote to be found later here.
Google it.
But one of us should just Google. But the point he was making is how incredibly uncomfortable, particularly corporations and stores and other sort of institution type people got when he came in with a camera. And he said, well, look, you've got security cameras there, and there. You are watching me all the time. Why don't I have that power to be able to surveil, to sort of turn the surveillance around? To the degree that Glass allows the individual to do that it at least inspires the conversation. I don't know if you've seen, there are already stickers out that have the little glass symbol with a line through it saying Google Glass is not allowed here, it's not acceptable here. Starting to raise the question of what sort of institutions are banning glass and why. Again, I think that's a wonderful conversation to bring into the atmosphere.
A few months ago, I read an article saying that strip clubs already banned glass, for example. So do you think it's going to continue, like, kind of affecting social dynamics and laws and
The UK has banned it from driving, I think, as well. You can't wear them while driving. What I have found, let's see if you guys have found as well, folks who have not worn them or tried them project so much onto it. Like, oh, you're recording all the time. Oh, and once they try it, it just kind of...
It's absolute fear-mongering. And
Yeah.
I try not to roll my eyes as soon as somebody, it comes to me with all this, like, real vituperation a lot of times, just presuming that I am violating their privacy and that Google is violating my privacy in all sorts of unique ways. Honestly, there's not that much unique privacy violation that this allows. But the perception of it, I think, is what's interesting.
And the fear about it is that as you used to have to wear a tinfoil hat, but thanks to the NSA, we don't have to wear that tinfoil hat. But, that camera could be turned on externally or something like that. That's more highly unlikely. But that happens with your phone, and there are more phones than there are Google Glass.
Or the laptop, or the iPad 2, or whatever happens.
It's not... What I found the broadcast story from the 80s. Just to go back a little bit to the glass holes thing, and the whole story was about the 80s, the yuppie years, and car phones. And if you were to take out yuppies and put in glass holes, and take out a car phone and put in glass, it would be the exact same thing. Is it, safe to drive with that stuff? Is it elitist to have that stuff? And it's just the same type of fears and concerns that kind of come and go by. If you remember when pagers came out, if you had a pager, you're a drug dealer, right? There were all these projected things, and then cell phones. I bet you there's more than one person here would say, I would never have a cell phone because I don't want anyone to know where I'm at. I've got 2 now. It's just that comfort level kind of changes. For better or for worse, we become more sharers, maybe oversharers, but that's I think, a reality.
And the benefits outweigh the concerns, right? It's cool, it's fun, it's interesting, and I think the majority of people are going to maybe have pause at the privacy issues and then decide, whatever, I want a computer on my face.
Does anyone disagree with that statement? The statement was, whatever with privacy, I want a computer.
A lot of people, I think, are going to say that. Not everyone.
I'm not saying that, but is anyone here like, I'm never going to do glass?
No, but I mean, what I'm thinking is, I think you're framing a lot of this discussion from the perspective of consumers, right? And I'm thinking, what does this mean for institutions, right? And in particular, I'm thinking about policing, right, and military applications, right? So whereas I think that the focus on the image is a little distracting, that what is unique about this is not necessarily the image, the augmentation of data, right, and the assemblage of various things. So my privacy concerns aren't necessarily what all of y'all are doing, right, that this might be recorded, but, how might this be integrated with RFID technology and IDs, and what does this mean for legal protection of searches?
I did imagine at one point, when the first time I drove wearing glass and getting the directions, that if I did get pulled over, I'm going to record the whole thing. There was a guy who recorded an arrest. There was like a fight, and he happened to record it. It's a new thing. Everything is new about it. The content, how do we present the content, how do you consume the content? And I kind of think it's pretty exciting to be exploring that space.
I think from my own experience, the privacy concerns that I've encountered haven't necessarily been around what is being produced. So, I mean, if you have a video on your phone versus video on glass, it's going to be the same privacy issue regardless. But the potential for something, especially in the face of the unknown, is probably the most concern, especially because as I encounter people out in public, they don't know what it is. And so maybe someone will just glance at it, but there might be some other concerns beyond just that glance. And that's, I think, the big hole that we as academics can really bring discourse to.
I think the other thing to bear in mind is, correct me if I'm wrong, on the techie side of this, but there's no sort of mobile antenna thing in here such that it could constantly be connected. You have to choose to either tether it to your phone or have it connected via Wi-Fi, which is fundamentally different from the way the cell phone works, right? Like, I think that that it's much less connected than people realize. And very often I won't have it connected to any sort of data, either via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or anything.
Well, what benefit do you get when you do that?
Camera on my face.
Better than whipping iPhone?
So what does Google think about facial recognition?
They've initially kind of banned it, right? They said we're not doing that, but that's also no.
Google is not doing it, but from what I understand, again, much like with the pornography question, there's nothing stopping third parties from doing it. And in fact, one of the most interesting applications I've heard about is for medical professionals being able to do facial recognition to pull up patient profiles.
Yeah, right.
So I think, from what I understand, it's already out there, but Google is being very clear about keeping their hands out of it.
And just to throw it back out there again, it's not like that didn't exist already with regular video.
Yes, exactly.
Well, to turn the tables, how do we feel as a society if all of a sudden every cop was wearing those?
I would get one too. What if everyone?
Well, actually, I mean, there have been some discussions around actual laws now that are trying to implement this. And I don't know if anyone has read these recently, but there was a push for it in New York City.
Right.
And I actually don't remember how that went. I think that the mayor went against it, although there were a number of people in support of it.
And cops already wear clip-on cameras. I know in Seattle they have little ones there, and they're documenting all this stuff. And I thought I heard something in connection to LA, kind of like, so if something bad happens, there's documentation about that.
But getting back to the Segway model, right? I mean, who rides Segways? A
Yeah.
bunch of mall cops, right? And there's a little bit of that. I mean, they're literally rising above the rest of us by about, what, a foot and a half. And they're running that much faster than us. So it's a strange feeling, the fact that we don't have access to those, so to speak.
So the takeaway is we should all get Segways.
Yes.
Well, I think the interesting thing about Segway was the we and the access, because the we is upper middle class and not minorities and not lower class.
Absolutely.
Which continually are having the worst time in this hierarchy around privacy and other regulations.
Yeah. But just what Francesco was saying about the ubiquity of phones over laptops, right? So if they do price them at the exactly right
Latino
point.
community is more mobile than any other. Second is the African American community. Just bypassing laptops and paying for broadband, you just have computer on phone. So, but this is an accessory. It's not doesn't replace your phone. So I look at it like it will eventually it'll be your phone at some point. But we'll see. Other questions?
What do you think is the biggest downside of having Google Glass?
The biggest downside?
Yeah.
As in limitation or other type of downside?
Limitations of Google Glass itself.
Internet connectivity.
Yeah. The three that I look at is you've got to be tethered. If not, it's camera, but I don't know. And the other one is socially, to be in places and to have friends judge you. And an interesting thing, like, do I want that attention?
Have you ever been called a glass hole yet?
I have not to my face. I tend to not be douchey in general. So, and then the other, the battery. The battery is limiting, but I think that's okay to kind of test. It's the right mixture for this beta testing.
What about AR as a whole?
I haven't messed with this with AR. The only QR interface it has is that, at least before it was tethered, you would log on through a browser, or your iPhone Safari browser or Chrome browser. You would put in the information for the Wi-Fi, and then you'd hold up. It would spit out a QR code. You hold it up to your camera, and it takes a picture to connect it. Yeah.
How much storage for video?
I think it's 12 gigs, and it automatically backs up to Google+.
Which, to be honest, isn't bad.
No, actually, the interface is pretty good.
Yeah, it backs up to a private repository.
Yeah.
So yes, Google would have access to it if they needed to troubleshoot something, but it doesn't go public. So if you want to download all your photos that have been syncing while you're at home, you can easily do that, delete it from Google+.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So clearly, the entire Google Glass project is very expensive for Google to run, as is Gmail, as is Google Calendar, as is all of their free services. So, but they make money off of those because you end up being the product to them. What is the killer app for Glass? What are they getting out of you? Yeah, because if they're going to sell it,
they make their money. They fund self-driving cars, the balloons to help with Wi-Fi, all through Google Ads. So that's what this will be.
But do you feel like those products eventually have to feed back into?
This is so genius of Google because all their products point to here. Your Gmail is here, my calendar is here, Google Now is here. The Maps is here, and whether I like it or not, Google Plus is here. And in order for me to take advantage of this, I have to get an Android device. So for me, my observations, all the roads kind of point to support this. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say if you're on like Yahoo Mail, or if you're a hacker that cares about privacy and is using encrypted messaging, then this is not. It's a consumer device, and it will try and point people towards Google services as much as possible.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say is this whole Glass Explorer, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, we're walking spokespeople for Glass. And we paid a chunk of money to hope it works out. To try it out, I think. So I think they've done a really interesting. The experience with the fitting felt a little weird for me, but.
So going to the user experience, I've used Glass for brief moments, but not long enough to see if I can adapt to it. I know you have like the swipe, and it seemed really sensitive when I went back and forth like that. Do you get used to it as you use it, or how do you find
I
the
think
user
so. I
interaction?
found myself not, because like you said, when I started, I was looking at it all the time and almost bumping into things.
I have a great glass face, right? Like,
you do look,
really
you have to pay attention to it, and you got to
So would you say you get used to it as you use
I
it?
think so, yeah.
I'd say it took me almost a week to get really comfortable with it, just before, I felt normal using it just myself.
How often do you wear it? Are you walking around campus with it? You committed?
I
That
have.
with Michael, too. He's like, I'm committed. I'm going in. And actually, one of the conversations when we met for our meetup was the color choice. Why did you pick that color, right? I went with black because I kind of wanted to be low-key and blend with my glasses. You have blue, and he had orange, tangerine. There's cotton, aka white, and those kind of announce that you have glass. And this is kind of like hanging back a little bit. What was your thinking behind the color choice, if any?
Yeah, pretty much the same as you trying to hold back. Especially when you combine it with the sunglasses, it looks like you're just wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Which you sometimes tend to appreciate because
Yeah.
you can wear it out without people coming up to you and asking about it.
Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
As an explorer, are you obliged to give Google the information of how you're using it?
Have you guys participated in the community?
They invite
I got a
us
couple
to-
emails like, check out the community. And I'm like, I don't have time.
And I think I got like a Q&A, like a
Survey?
quick little survey
Yeah.
thing, but no, we're not under any obligation. And it really is, it's not properly a beta testing program. This is completely ours. We are not indebted to Google in any way. We paid our privilege.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And there's some agreements that you do, like you're not going to resell it or
But once you pay the $1,500, it's yours. You can destroy it if you want to.
Yeah.
What are the end-user licensing agreements on stuff like? You say you can destroy it if you want to, but how free are you to hack it?
I think you're fairly free. You
Like
just can't
100%
give it to somebody else. They wanted specifically to choose people to test this thing out. It's kind of like Twitter started out. They had this platform, but they weren't sure what could it do. This is kind of like that.
I'm thinking about like the jailbreak model.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think there's
Just like every other jailbreak, as soon as you jailbreak it, it's off warranty. They're not going to help you with it.
But they publicized the first teardown of it. They were really excited about the first person who broke it into its little bit.
Keep in mind that when we say they, that has many different slices to it, whether that's Google or the person we talked to at Google's office when I first got it.
And this is all true of the beta, not
Yes.
necessarily of how it will be used.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're approaching that 1 o'clock. I promised to get you out of here on time. Would you like to continue the conversation? Go to Twitter, #ASCJ at Annenberg, okay? #ASCJ at Annenberg, at USC Annenberg, at USC Annenberg. Or go to Facebook, facebook.com/USC Annenberg. Continue the conversation. We want to let people know what we're doing here. And this has been really quite interesting. Thank you very much, Francesca.